Hey everybody, Young Grasshopper here. Welcome to the Cliffside Bunker in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And this is a special presentation, basically a unique video. I'm giving my table a makeover. So I've done this before in the past where I've taken my out-of-box pieces, out-of-box meaning anything that comes with the game itself. You all saw my unboxing of 1940 Global 2nd Edition, the 1940 Europe box set, and the 1940 Pacific box set. You saw everything that comes with the game. That typically is what we call out-of-box pieces. Can even be applied to rules. So there's house rules and then there's out-of-box rules. So basically I'm going to give my game on top of my custom table a makeover. I'm swapping out lots of pieces. Now this is a video more for me than you guys. I mean, this is a process that I need to go through so I can move on and get into deeper content. And it's just one of those foundational videos that's all part of my channel reboot. A lot of people out there, you guys might be thinking, how many more of these types of videos are we going to have to go through? Well, pretty convinced it's my last. Take a look. I have here this many box sets that I've purchased in the past. You can see at the bottom there I got first edition, and then at the very top was the latest ones I purchased. Now, reasons for purchasing, obviously my first edition set and then moving on to my second edition set. Then the next copies were just for pieces, and then of course the last box set I purchased solely for new YouTube channel content like this here. Now it's time for me to swap out the pieces, the out-of-box pieces, for the pieces that I really want in and around my table. You can see on my last video, I did a Russian strategy video. I used everything out-of-box pieces in that video. Now to move on, gotta do some swapping out. Let's start with the rulebook. So here we have two rulebooks that come with the game: Pacific 1940 and Europe 1940. We're gonna get rid of these. We have a solution, something different. Take a look. So I got one of these cool little binder books here from Staples, and I went to Wizards of the Coast. They allow you to print a free downloadable file, which I did here. I got Europe in the front, Pacific in the back, and then everything is in one book. Okay, so we don't need the rule books anymore. Moving on, there's lots and lots that we need to go over. So take a look at everything on the sides of the bank here. Let's get right into Anzac, okay? So the gray pieces, Anzac, out of box, we have along the top: battleships, aircraft carriers, cruisers, subs, destroyers. Now I'm swapping out everything. This is going to be the nation that gets swapped out the most. Pretty much everything. The only thing that I'm keeping are the AA guns, just simply because first edition didn't come with AA guns. So I'm going with my first edition pieces along the bottom. Again, this is just me. You don't have to do this, all right? This is just me. I'm showing you my weaknesses as far as what I have to have, my OCD. So I prefer the first edition simple UK type units over the tall giant Anzac Tilly cap guys. That's just me. That's my preference. You know, might as well keep going with the tanks, even though there's not much wrong with these in my mind. Gonna go with the tanks. I like these mechanized infantry. These are just really just square pieces of plastic in my mind. These infantry, these little mice units, I call them. I like them better. Now I can do this because I have first edition pieces. I mean, first edition is very rare. People may not have it. Maybe they sold it. Maybe it's just collecting dust on your shelf because you've got second edition. You use that, but I really like the difference of pieces, especially for Anzac. So my beef is that the transports, the destroyers, and the cruisers all look too similar. The sizes are too similar to each other, and I recognize these as destroyers much easier because our tan destroyers for the UK Pacific look this, UK Europe look the same. These transports instead of these. And again, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the subs, but I'm using these. I'm moving on now. So, of course, these battleships I think are just better traditionally. Something about the weight, the size, and the texture of these that just seem off from the rest of the game. And that's just me. Okay, so I'm going to swap out all my gray Anzac pieces for my first edition set. And I'm grateful that I have that and I can do that. So if you see in future videos that my gray pieces are different from yours, that's why. So now they're very, very similar. The UK destroyers in second edition versus the UK destroyers in first edition. So I'm going with the first edition. There's not much difference at all. I know that I'm splitting hairs here, but you know, there's a little small radar tower on this one that I don't like too much. I mean, not a big deal, but I'm going with my first edition destroyers. I like them better. Swapping out these really simplistic cube-like mech infantry for my mice looking mech infantry. And a lot of it's got to do with size too. I mean, it's just slightly bigger than it should be in my opinion. So going with the first edition artillery versus the UK artillery. All these subs too, I'm going to swap out for my first edition. They're just slightly different. Again, no big deal. Just saying that my subs in the game on the board in my videos are going to look different than maybe yours. This is a big change here because I don't like these too much. I mean, they're fine, but I like these much better. These are the cruisers from Anniversary Edition. So Italian cruisers from Anniversary Edition. I got fewer because I swapped everything out on the board as well. So obviously if 4 cruisers are coming out of the table, then 4 cruisers are going in. I got the 2 that go in stock here, and of course 2 are on the board. I'm getting rid of the transports for Italy and going with these. I know these to be transports. I've been playing with the German pieces for a long time. They're from the first edition. These look too much close to destroyers. Obviously, it's not a big deal, but if I can swap it out for something I know is more recognizable than this, then I don't have to worry about a destroyer and a transport being together, trying to tell those apart. Again, these are really big mechanized infantry. I think they're bigger than the actual tanks that come with the out-of-box game, so I'm going with the similar type of mouse-sized or mouse-shaped mechs for these. These are like really big trucks, and it's a size thing. Same thing with the artillery. The artillery just slightly too big for me in the out-of-box G40. Now they work great, but I'm going with these smaller 1914 Axis and Allies brown. These artillery units for Italy. I like them better than what the out-of-box comes with. And again, the only thing that I'm changing with Germany, the only thing are the cruisers. Again, it's got the 2 points at the bow and the stern. And I'm going with these, got the flat backs, right? Similar, if not very similar to Italy and their cruisers. So it's going to be cool that they have the Anniversary Edition cruisers, which I like better. And again, everybody's going to have their own preferences. And I mean, when it comes to Japan, I'm not swapping out anything for Japan. I don't think there's a lot of difference anyways. I don't think anything was much changed between first edition and second edition Japanese, so you're kind of stuck with them anyway. But if you have the ability to swap out, and remember, we have great resources like Historical Board Gaming out there, where if we like something better, then why not swap it out if we want? If we think about these things, I mean, here the German infantry are just fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They work great, you know. But Historical Board Gaming has a beautiful German infantry sculpt with the long trench coat, right? If you get those, you could swap out and just be original and different with your game. So for me, it's just information recognition. I mean, when I look at the board, I don't like being confused at all. When it comes to things like these subs, when I can go with the first edition, I will. I just think they're simpler, better. A lot of people put like historical relevance as a factor. Personally, I don't. I just go with the piece that I think is better looking or easier to pick up, or you know, maybe smaller than the one that I'm replacing it with. So let's get into some other stuff. That's what I'm swapping out. Now, the rulebook says for the Chinese to use the American pieces when putting a fighter on the board. In the setup, there's a fighter. So I'm going to take this. This is from the revised edition. This is an American fighter from the revised edition. And we're going to go ahead and swap it. Now, I did do all the swapping. You can see the new artillery here. Okay, you can see the new destroyers here. But this is one I did not swap. So it's a new Chinese fighter. The rulebook says to just use American fighters for both, American pieces for both the fighter and artillery. So in some cases the Chinese can buy artillery and place them on the board, but I'm going with the 1914 celery green. I'll be putting those in the Chinese trade just so that they have something different. Okay. Factories. So I removed all the chits. The chit that has the factory with the 3, and all the chits on the board that have the factory with the 10. These are majors, these are minors. I'm going with an anniversary edition style factory for my minor industrial complexes, and I'm going with this beautiful plastic gray piece repurposed from a Risk game. I'm using those as my major industrial complexes. So I want to tell you now about chips. Look at how many chips we have left from out of box. So these are the numbers from out of box. And I'll tell you why. I did the setup properly. I mean, when there was a 4, I went ahead and put a 4 down. And when there was a 6 called for a red, I put a red. So I did all that. But I also added neutrals. I've got these generic Brits, again, our Anzac gray and our UK tan are of the same sculpt. These are celery green, I believe, from revised. And I'm using them as neutrals. And you can see over here in South America, I've got the neutrals on the board. In Spain and Portugal, I placed neutrals. You know, I may not do this every game. It's just one of those things that, you know, I might feel like doing just to have on the board. And for example, if there's a strafe in Yugoslavia, and there's actually 5 there, you can see the green and the white. But if there's a strafe and you leave 2 infantry and they retreat back to Romania, then you've got the colored infantry right there representing a neutral that can just stay on the board. So with the added chips that I used for placing the neutrals on the board, you can see up here in Mongolia as well, right? They'll stay there until they turn Russian, or if they do at all. So with all that, with all the chips needed for the setup, plus the neutrals that you don't have to place, there's only 1 gray chip left. I mean, even if you don't place the neutrals on the board, it's still not enough. So I am just adding a whole bunch of chips here. I've got chips like this from past games, and I've got lots of them. I didn't count how many I'm going to place, but I will, and I'll place even more if I have to, because I've got lots of chips. So here at my table, my gaming groups, you'll never ever be searching for a chip because we ran out. All right. So next, I want to get into some historical board gaming stuff. All right. So I've got lots of tokens, acrylics here, and one thing that I'm going to do, I haven't done it yet. You see all these cardboard control markers that came with the game. Nothing wrong with them. They're okay and a little difficult to pick up, but no big deal. Not as hard as those square, little gray square counters. These are harder to pick up, right? These not so bad, but when we love our game and we want to customize it, make it beautiful, and create a great gaming environment for our friends that come over, gonna go, and I spent the money to have these from Historical Board Gaming. Doug's been great. Doug has supplied me with all kinds of stuff. Not always paid for everything. He's you know, for giving him big shout outs, he's sent me some things, but you know what, I mean, even if he didn't, if I like something, I'll be honest with you guys, and I really like a lot of this stuff. We got some convoy markers. I just want them around the table so in future videos I can show you what I use them for. Don't have to get them. These are cool. These are just better kamikaze tokens. So we can use 6 of them to place around on kamikaze zones if you like. And then keep another 6 in your tray as the actual units themselves, right? It's up to you. These I really like. I highly suggest you get these. These are great little battle markers. Damage markers for battleships or aircraft carriers. And we want some of these. If we're getting rid of them later, and I'll show you when I talk about my custom map, but when we have these counters still on our out-of-box board, but we want a few of these in case we buy some, purchase them. They're nice to differentiate. So for example, if we buy a naval base there, we know that that's a newly purchased one. This is an original one. But anyway, we'll talk more about these, but it's always nice to have a small handful of those. You can go to Historical Board Game. I'll put a link in the description box where you can go, but I always like to have this stuff around my table. Okay, and definitely these roundels. You know, in the beginning I didn't know if I was going to like them or not, but after getting them and keeping them around on my table, I've fallen in love with them, and I think that they're more than nice. I think they're like close to being essential for your gaming table, your gaming experience. Just very, very cool. Alright, so the game does not come with income. Game does not come with currency. So they suggest in the rulebook that you use a pen and paper to calculate your pluses and bonuses and whatnot and come up with a set cash amount and write that down in a certain column and then use that, carry it over and all this. And you know, we grew up, maybe not many of you, but a few of us grew up with the original game that came with money. Now you can go and get some battle bucks from Historical Board Gaming. These are the World War I battle bucks. They're printed front and back. They're nice. This is a crisp, brand new set of battle bucks, also available at HBG. I'm going to go ahead and just use my anniversary edition bills though. I've been using them for a while. I like them. They're okay. They're good. We need something, anything. A lot of people will say, well, aren't you going to show us your I Will Never Grow Up poker chips, YG? And I'm like, I don't have them. I gave them away. Aren't you going to show us your card deck currency cards? And I was like, I would, but I don't have them because I give them away. I give a lot of stuff away. I give away literally thousands of pieces to Sam Kenny over at the UK. I gave away my brand new War Room to Hilltop Pillbox, and I give away accessories too if I feel like I want to make somebody happy. But anyway, moving on. Let's look at the table now, so you can see that we've got our factories. That's on the board. Our factories on the board. We'll swap these out maybe with the red so that they stand out a little bit more, those kamikazes. Alright, I'm keeping these. In my last videos I went with a World War I 1914 piece, and again, it's preference. I know that General Hand Grenade made a video recently talking about how much he hates those World War I type artillery units. I actually like them. So it's all preference, and it's your table. You can do whatever you want with it, and that's the beautiful thing. I mean, this video is going to be very, very boring to people because, you know, it's like, all right, well, that's what you're doing. Go ahead and do it. But I like to have a chronicle of how I change the out-of-box you know, because I am changing quite a bit. So you can put like convoy zones on the board like this to really pop them out. That's an example. We've got some British artillery swapped out. These swapped out. Now something else I swapped out are pretty much all the bombers. All the bombers from Out of Box, and not particularly because of Sculpt, but because my buddy Wartorn gave me a whole bunch with magnets on the bottom. You can see on the belly of that bomber that there's a magnet. And I'll just show you here. Take a look. We got the Italian bomber there, magnetized on a stick, on a flight stand. The Germans as well. So I swapped out all my bombers for the ones with my old ones with the magnets on them. So had to do that. And again, I mean, we will talk about other additions, other customizations coming up. Map files, card decks, battle dice. I mean, there's much more. I'm trying to get everything I can in one video so I can just move on and do some more strategy videos and things like that. Here's some blow up tiles from my buddy Wartorn. So if you've got a large fleet, right, just put that next to wherever, and then put all your pieces on top and put this on the board where this fleet or where this particular force is on the board. So very unique. Excellent customization, very creative. Thank you, Wartorn. So one thing you're going to find if you're new to this hobby and you're experiencing this kind of stuff for the first time, one thing you're going to know is that there is so much creativity in this hobby. First of all, we play this game long hours and long stretches. And there's not much time for other games because we love this game so much. And when it hits the table, it's an easy 9 hours, maybe 12 in some cases. But when you spend so much time around the table staring at the same board and everything, you want to just make things better. So big shout out to Doug as well at HBG for helping us make things better with his products and all the things he has available over at HBG. So here, remember, we didn't have enough dice. We had 12. We had 6 black, 6 red. 3 black from Europe, 3 red, and again from Pacific. 3 black from Pacific, 3 red in Pacific. So 12. So I have more than enough dice. I just doubled it. And I threw in these little small ones as just some options if people want to change their dice. But basically, whatever comes with the out of box is just not enough. I would venture to say that this isn't even enough, and I've doubled what the out of box gives you, right? So anyway, like I said, I'm going to swap out all the control markers. Now with Italy, I do have HBG acrylic control markers for this insignia, but I'm going with the more preferred fascist Italy insignia, swapping them out. So all this cardboard, all this here will be swapped out for HBG, and that's simply because I want the best around my custom game table. I'll take those roundels and I'll put them in some plastic trays, make them available in a set that I'm going to split off. Basically, that'll be my portable set, the set I just grab and go if I'm playing at a convention or something. It's like, it's hard to think about playing at a convention these days, but the day will come again. So we added more dice. We need more dice. We added more chips. We need more chips for sure. So these are the flight stands from Wartorn. I mean, these are not available anymore, so don't flood my comments asking for them. They were a very special, unique customization by a good friend of mine that gifted them to me. He also sold them in the community for a while, and he just doesn't do it anymore. But some of the best flight stands ever, in my opinion. I think a lot of people can attest to that. So this is what I'm adding. This is what I'm swapping for now. So in future videos, all my gray Anzac would be different than yours from out of box. They'll be all, you can see here, they'll be all the first edition pieces. You know, the old-fashioned, simple transport destroyer cruiser, simple fighters. It all looks like the British. You don't have to learn more information recognition, and trying to tell those boats apart has never been something that I've cared for. They're just too close together. Alright guys, so there we go. Explained a lot about what I'm adding, and it'll change. A lot of what you see in future videos would be even more changed, considering the other things I'll be adding that I mentioned. They deserve their own video all on their own, but you know, I recommend just going out and getting the sculpts that you want. If you hate a sculpt, if you just don't like it and it bugs you and it's on your table, go to HBG and swap it out, or go to another Axis and Allies franchise game on your shelf and see if there's something different that you like. Don't think there was anything in particular at all that I swapped out for the Russians. I don't think so. I think everything's fine for the Russians. Straightforward. Alright guys, well thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. So this is, again, more just house cleaning for me when it comes to the differences that I'm swapping out on my table. I'm doing a complete makeover. I want a little chronicle, just going over what's changed, because it will look very, very different in the end. It'll look very different from out of box, and new players coming to my channel to try and learn this game, want to give them a reference, if they care, as to why some pieces on my table look different than what they bought from the store. Alright guys, thanks a lot. Cheers. Really appreciate it. I'm glad to get this one out of the way so I can move on, but going to put a lot of this stuff into the trays, and yeah, well, appreciate all you guys. Thanks for the likes, thanks for the comments, and may all your rolls be ones. Cheers. See you in the next vid.